Okay, so we'll start with the Mangalacharan.
Yes.
Majjana Timanandasya, Jnananjana Shalakaya, Sakshurunnitam Yana Tasmi Sri Guru Yunama, Sri Chaitanya Mano Vishkam Stapitam Yena Bhutali, Swayam Upagadamayam Datati Swapadantikam, Vandeyam Sri Guru Sri Udapatakalam, Sri Guru Vaishnavacha, Sri Rupam Sagajatam Sagana Raghunathan Vidam Stamsa Jivan, Sadvaitam Savadutam Paljana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam, Sri Radha Krishna Patan Sagalan Lilachi Visakan Vitamscha, He Krishna Karna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpati, Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste. तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय Today is a continuation on this small book titled On the Way to Krishna. We have already completed chapter 3, so today we'll be looking at chapter 4. So chapter 3 is titled Seeing Krishna Everywhere and Always. So just a quick recap regarding that chapter. So in chapter 3, Prabhupada talks about how we can see Krishna everywhere and always. So the importance of Krishna consciousness is that it enables us to remain engaged in our material affairs and still be able to remember Krishna everywhere and always, because that's exactly what Krishna himself says in Gita 8.7. Krishna tells Arjuna, Tasmat Sarvesu Kaleshu, Ma Manusmana Yudhyacha, Mai Arpita Mano Buddhir, Ma Me Vaisasi Asamshaya. So Krishna tells Arjuna to remember him while doing his duty of fighting. By doing so, Krishna is telling Arjuna that Arjuna can attain him. By doing so, Krishna is also telling us that. So in this chapter, it is explained how we can see Krishna everywhere. Like in Gita 7.8, Krishna says, Raso Amatsu Kaunteya, Prabhasmi Sasi Suryo, Pranava Sarve Vedishu, Sabdake Paurusham Rishu. So Krishna says, I am the taste in water. So like even in yesterday's class, we saw about how the Supreme Brahman pervades the entire creation, like whether it's the spiritual world or the material world. The Supreme Brahman, Krishna, he pervades the entire creation and he is present everywhere, even in the spiritual world and in the material world. Even in the material world, he is present in all the material elements. Like we know that water is one of the 24 elements which serve as the raw ingredients to make up the material world. So Krishna is there in water as the taste of water. Then he says, Pravasmi Sasisureo. He is the effulgence of the light which emanates from the sun and moon. Pranava Sarvavedeshu. He is the sound Om in all the mantras. And Shabdake Paurusham Rishu means he is the strength in men, in strong human beings. So like that, Krishna is telling how we can see him and experience him everywhere. Even in chapter 10, regarding the opulence of the Absolute, Krishna talks about how he is present as the best in everything. Like he says, among Pandavas, I am Arjuna. So he is the Krishna is the most exalted person in everything. So even when we look at something beautiful or something rich or anything which is materially opulent, we have to be we should automatically recall about Krishna, because that's what he makes us understand through his verses in chapter 10. So if we look at why we should see Krishna everywhere and always, Even that is explained by Krishna in Gita 8.5. In 8.5, he says, Antakali chamameva smaran muktva kalevaram ya prayati samatbhavam yati nashtyarcha samshaya. So Krishna says that those who remember him at the time of death can attain him, the supreme abode. So that is the basic aim behind why we should practice Krishna consciousness. In order to liberate ourselves from this material bondage, we have to be able to remember Krishna at the time of death, but that will not come unless we practice Krishna consciousness seriously throughout our life. Because it is also stated in Garuda Puranam that at the time of death, we'll be experiencing the kind of pain like being bitten by thousands of scorpions. So how to remember Krishna at that time? And in order to remember Krishna when we are in such pain, even that, for that we require the mercy of Krishna. Because even in chapter 15.15, Krishna says, Sarvasya cham priti sannivista matta smridil jnanam apohanam cha. Matta smridil jnanam apohanam cha, meaning that Krishna says, remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness, even those come from him. So even if we want to remember Krishna at the time of death, even for that we require his mercy. So the biggest problem in our community is that a lot of people think that the spirituality and especially practicing Krishna consciousness can be done after retirement. So it doesn't work that way. Maybe in our school days, we used to prepare for exams during the last minute, and then we expect to pass or even score A's. That might have worked during the school days, but we cannot really cheat Krishna like that. So if we are not serious about practicing Krishna consciousness throughout our life, then we may not be fortunate enough to gain Krishna's mercy at the time of death, so that we can remember him. So any small mistake which happens at the time of death will prove to be even worse than death, because we can clearly see from the example of Bharat Maharaj. He was such an exemplary devotee. However, that mistake which he did during the last moment, due to his attachment to this baby deer towards the end of his life, that cost him dearly. However, we also can see from another example, like the example of Ajamila. In his case, he led a very sinful life, but he somehow gained Krishna's mercy simply by uttering the holy name. So if we look at these two examples, these are like two extremes, and we don't really have to compare ourselves with them. We can just follow the simple procedures prescribed by our acharyas, especially Srila Prabhupada, and get it right, so that we don't mess up during the last moment of our life. So that is the importance of seeing Krishna everywhere and always. Just a quick recap about the previous chapter. So today's chapter is on chapter 4, the roads of the foolish and the wise. Krishna is thus explaining himself as he is, yet we are not attracted to him. Why is this? The reason is given by Krishna himself. So in the previous chapter, Krishna was explaining about himself, like how he is the taste of water, how he is present in all the material creations. Yet we are not attracted to him. Why is this? The reason is given by Krishna himself. In 7.14, Krishna says, Daivihesha gunamayi mamamaya duratya mamevaye prapatyanti maya metam tanantite. This divine energy of mind, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome, but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. Gita 7.14. The material world is pervaded by the three qualities of material nature. All living entities are influenced by these qualities. If they are primarily influenced by the mode of goodness, they are called brahmanas, and if they are influenced by the mode of passion, they are called kshatriyas. If they are influenced by the modes of passion and ignorance, they are vaishyas, and if they are influenced by ignorance, they are Shudras. This is not an artificial imposition due to birth or social status, but is according to guna or the mode of nature under which one is operating. So we are trapped in this material world mainly because of our material desires, and as long as we are trapped here, we will always be puppets at the hands of the three puppeteers, namely the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. However, we are so deluded by our desires in such a way that we don't even know that we are being controlled by material nature. We tend to think that we are exploiting material nature, and we tend to think that we are enjoying. But it's the exact opposite, because material nature is exploiting us. Though we originated from the spiritual world, and we are supposed to be superior to this material nature, but we ourselves have degraded our original position due to our material desires. And it's also stated in Gita 18.40 that in all the three worlds, the upper, lower, and middle worlds in the material world, none of the living beings are free from the material modes. Like even Brahma is subject to the influence of the modes of nature. And then in 18.41, Kṛṣṇa explains again regarding the Varna system, like how the four Varnas are related to the modes. So all those who are in the human society particularly, we are all dominated by specific modes of nature, and that actually decides our Varna, not by birth or something else. That's what Kṛṣṇa says in 4.13. Chaturvarnyam Maya system, Guna Karma Vivagasa, Tasya Kartaram Apyama, Vidya Kartaram Avyayam. According to the three modes of material nature and the work associated with them, the four divisions of human society were created by me. And although I am the creator of this system, you should know that I am yet the non-doer, being unchangeable. Gita 4.13. So, regardless of the fact that a lot of malicious propaganda is being conducted to defame this Varna system in all the countries throughout the world, whether they like it or not, they are also practicing this Varna system, because Kshatriyas, like the armed forces, are there in all the countries. Vaishyas, there are entrepreneurs and traders in all the countries. Shudras, there are laborers in all the countries. And Brahmanas, there are knowledge workers and teachers in all the countries all over the world. This Varna system is there, though they may not like to use the label of Varna. So it has got nothing to do with birth. It is simply because it is simply related to the material modes of nature that which is associated to our behavior. It's not that this system refers to the perverted caste system in India. Sri Kṛṣṇa specifically states, Guna Karma Vibhagasa. Men are classified according to the guna or mode under which they are operating, and this applies to men all over the universe. When Kṛṣṇa speaks, we must understand that whatever he says is not limited, but is universally true. He claims to be the father of all living entities, even the animals, aquatics, trees, plants, worms, birds, and beasts are all claimed to be his sons. Sri Kṛṣṇa asserts that the entire universe is illusioned by the interactions of the three qualities of material nature, and we are under the spell of that illusion. Therefore, we cannot understand what God is. So in 7.14, Kṛṣṇa himself says, Daivi Hesha Gunamai Mamaya Durtiya Mameve Prapatyante Mayamitam Taranjiti. This divine energy of mind, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. So as long as we are under the influence of Maya, it is difficult to overcome Maya. And actually, there are two types of Maya. One is Mahamaya, and another one is Yoga Maya. Yoga Maya is what covers Kṛṣṇa from his internal energy. Krishna himself is covered through his internal energy, and Maya, which is part of Krishna's external energy, covers us in such a way that we are unable to see Krishna. Even if we overcome the influence of Maya, still we may not be able to understand Krishna unless he himself is willing to reveal himself uh, by opening up his curtain of Yoga Maya. So even that will only happen if we have Krishna's mercy. So that's why it is not easy to understand God, even for those who are engaged in spirituality, because we know that even in other schools of thought, like the impersonalist schools, they are still unable to understand the personality of God. So even that will only happen if we have the mercy of Krishna. What is the nature of this illusion and how can it be overcome? That is also explained in the Bhagavad Gita. Daivesha gunamai mamaya duratya mameve prapatyanti mayamitam tantite. This divine energy of mind, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. But those who have surrendered to me can easily cross beyond it. Though the power of material nature is so dominating for us as the conditioned souls, it's very difficult for us to overcome the power of this material nature, but we can still do it by surrendering to Krishna. That is assured by Krishna. He himself says that those who have surrendered to him can easily cross beyond the influence of these modes of material nature. No one can get rid of the entanglement of the three qualities of material nature by mental speculation. The three gunas are very strong and hard to overcome. Can't we feel how we are in the grip of material nature? The word guna, mode, also means rope. When someone is bound by the three strong ropes, he is certainly very tightly secured. Our hands and legs are all bound by the strong ropes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. Are we therefore to abandon hope? No, for here Sri Krishna promises that whoever surrenders unto him is at once free. When one becomes Krishna conscious, whether in this way or that way, he becomes free. So as mentioned earlier, even this power of Mahamaya is actually part of Krishna's external energy. We came to this material world to become enjoyers and controllers. However, even in actually our desire was such that we wanted to be like free from being dominated by Krishna in the spiritual world. Like we ourselves, we wanted to be enjoyers in our own right. So we have descended to this material world, but still we are being dominated by Krishna through his external energy. So if we want to remain as enjoyers in this material world, though that's not the fact, we are not enjoying in any way in this material world, still we will be under Krishna's dominance. Even if we go to the spiritual world, we will still be under his care. So in either ways, we will always be subject to his spiritual or material energies, always. So even this Mahamaya is part of Krishna's external energy, and therefore the Mahamaya is not above Krishna. So if Krishna wants, he can liberate us from the material bondage, and for that to happen, we have to surrender to him. So that's what he promises in 7.14. We are all related to Krishna, for we are all his sons. A son may have a disagreement with his father, but it is not possible for him to break that relation. In the course of his life, he will be asked who he is, and he will have to reply, I am the son of so-and-so. That relation cannot be broken. We are all sons of God, and that relationship with him is eternal. But we have simply forgotten. Krishna is all powerful, all famous, all wealthy, all beautiful, all knowledgeable, and full and he is full of renunciation as well. Although we are friends of such a great personality, we have forgotten it. If a rich man's son forgets his father, leaves home, and becomes mad, he may lie on the street to go to sleep, or he may beg money for food. But all of this is due to his forgetfulness. If someone, however, gives him information that he is simply suffering because he has left his father's home, and that his father, a very wealthy man and owner of vast property, is anxious to have him return, the person is a great benefactor. So our relationship with Krishna is eternal, as stated in Gita 15.7. Krishna himself says, Mamai Vamso Jivaloki Jivabhuta Sanatana Manashastandriyani Prakrishtani Karsati. Krishna says in 15.7 that all the living entities are his eternal fragmental parts. However, we are suffering with the six senses due to our material desires in this material world. So, despite being related to Krishna, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we have actually degraded ourselves merely due to our material desires. So, it is also stated here, Krishna is all powerful, all famous. These are the six opulences which were defined by Parashar Muni regarding the definition of Bhagavan. So we are part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but we ourselves have degraded to this position due to our material desires. So to break free from this material bondage and get back to where we came from, we have to rely on what has been prescribed in the scriptures, because it is also stated that while Krishna is our Supreme Father, the scriptures are like our mother, because the mother tells us about our father. So we have to always follow the scriptures with full faith. And even our acharyas, they are also helping us in our journey to go back to our Supreme Father, so that we can quit from this suffering in this material world. In this material world, we are always suffering under the threefold miseries. The miseries arising from the body and mind, from other living entities, and from natural catastrophes. Being covered by illusion, by the modes of material nature, we do not take account of these miseries. However, we should always know that in the material world, we are undergoing so much suffering. One who has sufficiently developed consciousness, who is intelligent, inquires why he is suffering. I do not want miseries. Why am I suffering? When this question arises, there is a chance to become Krishna conscious. So the threefold miseries in the material world, they are described as Adhyatmic, Adi Daivik, Adi Bhautik. So Adhyatmic is the miseries arising from body and mind. Adi Daivik from natural catastrophic. Adi Bhautik is from, sorry, I think the other way around. Adi Bhautik is from natural catastrophes. And the other one is Adi Daivik. So these, as long as we are in the material world, we will also be trapped by these miseries. Like we have even seen that recently this earthquake happened, and also many other disasters are happening. People are dying, and still nobody is willing to inquire about why we are here in the first place. We are born in this world, and we are always told that okay, like since childhood, my parents always used to tell me that I have to study hard, grow up, and then after studying, look for a job, earn money. So I've always been hearing all these things since childhood. But when I was 16, I saw and there was one life-changing event which forced me to inquire. When I saw the death of my grandfather, that was my Brahma Jignasa moment. So I started to inquire, if I'm going to study hard earn money, and it's going to end just like that. Why should this happen in the first place? Like, doesn't it sound like a completely futile experience? Like, we tend to start from zero, and we always have these desires of making it big in life, accumulating so much material wealth and all that. But someday, everything is going to disappear just like that. So, for those who have developed this inquiry, at least they would have had their Brahma Jignasa moment. But for others, maybe they might have experienced it, but they are still too obsessed with accumulating material wealth. So as long as we don't begin to inquire, there's no chance of being liberated from this vicious cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease. And it is no doubt a futile experience to be trapped in this cycle. Like, now we have got this precious human form of life, which means that this is the biggest opportunity for us to break free from this cycle. But if we don't, if we fail to do it, then we might end up with some other form of body and start all over again. So even that is what happened to Bharat Maharaj. So it is important to first inquire about why we are here in the first place. And after inquiry, we should also work on remedying the, to look for the proper remedies and to really act by working on the solution, which is pure Krishna consciousness. So only when the question arises, there is a chance to become Krishna conscious. As soon as we surrender ourselves to Krishna, he welcomes us very cordially. It is just like a lost child who returns to his father and says, "My dear father, due to some misunderstanding, I left your protection, but I have suffered. Now I return to you." The father embraces his son and says, "My dear boy, come on. I was so anxious for you all the days you were gone, and now I'm so happy you have come back." The father is so kind. We are in the same position. We have to surrender to Krishna, and it is not very difficult. When the son surrenders to the father, is it a very difficult job? It is very natural, and the father is always waiting to receive the son. There's no question of insult. If we bow down before our Supreme Father and touch his feet, there's no harm for us, nor is it difficult. Indeed, it's glorious for us. Why should we not? By surrendering to Krishna, we come immediately under his protection and are relieved of all miseries. This is validated by all scriptures. So the Father, our Supreme Father, is always anxious to have us back in the spiritual world. And he has proved it throughout all his, through his various pastimes, through all his incarnations. And when you talk about incarnations, it's not just about the 22 incarnations stated in Bhagavatam, but he is also present with us in the form of literary incarnation, like Gita and Bhagavatam. So he is always there to help us in our journey to go back to him. And Prabhupada also mentions here that there is no question of insult when we want to surrender to our Supreme Father, because regardless of the fact that the so-called atheists who say that there is no God and everything comes from nature, they don't even understand the simple fact that even nature is part of Krishna's inferior energy. So they are simply trying to deny the existence of Krishna, but even for that, they need to depend on nature, which is also part of Krishna's inferior energy. So even if we refuse to surrender to Krishna, we will still be under the dominance of material nature, which is also part of Krishna's inferior energy. So there is no question of it's not like we are being free from Krishna's dominance now. Even now, we are under the dominance of his inferior material energy. But we are being trapped in this futile and vicious cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease. But if we are willing to surrender to him and associate with him in the spiritual world, then we can liberate ourselves from this vicious cycle. By surrendering to Krishna, we come immediately under his protection and are relieved of all miseries. This is validated by all scriptures. At the end of the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna says, Sarva dharman parijatya mamekam saranam raja am tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayami masucha. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. So, apart from giving us all forms of help, like in the form of scriptures and also with the mercy of acharyas, because we can only come in the association of acharyas and devotees only by the mercy of Krishna. Even for that, we need the mercy of Krishna. So Krishna is willing to help us in the journey back to Godhead in every way that is possible. And apart from doing that, he also gives this assurance, Ma Sucha, do not fear. So we just have to follow his instructions and not worry about what's going to happen. When we throw ourselves at the feet of God, we come under his protection. And from that time on, there's no fear for us. When children are under the protection of their parents, they are fearless because they know their parents will not let them be harmed. Mam evaye prapadyante. Krishna promises that those who surrender to him have no cause for fear. And of course, this is also related to the fact that Krishna is transcendental. Like in Sanatana Dharma, there's the concept of God is transcendental. It is beyond dualities. So there's no such thing like we have God representing the positive energy and Satan on the negative side. No, God is transcendent. He is above everything. And that has been proven because all those demons who wanted to fight against Krishna, they were easily crushed by Krishna. But even in those past times, we can see that like Prahlad Maharaj, who was completely fearless, he completely surrendered to Krishna and he was always fearless, despite the fact that he was being tortured by his own father. Of course, Hiranyakashipu was just Prahlad's father in the material world. But despite that, Prahlad Maharaj was always getting the protection of his supreme father. So that's what Krishna promises us, and he has even demonstrated it in all his pastimes. So as long as we surrender to our supreme father, we don't have to worry about what's going to happen in this material world. If surrender unto Krishna is such an easy thing, then why don't people do it? Instead, there are many who are challenging the very existence of God, claiming that nature and science are everything and that God is nothing. So-called advancement of civilization in knowledge means that the populace is becoming more mad. Instead of being cured, the disease is being increased. People don't care for God, but they care for nature, and it's nature's business to give kicks in the form of the threefold miseries. She is always administering these kicks 24 hours a day. However, we have become so accustomed to being kicked that we think it's all right and consider it to be the ordinary course of things. We have become very proud of our education, but we tell material nature, thank you very much for kicking me. Now please continue. Thus deluded, we think we have even conquered material nature. But how is this so? Nature is still inflicting on us the miseries of birth, old age, disease, and death. Has anyone solved these problems? Then what advancement have we really made in knowledge and civilization? We are under the stringent rules of material nature, but still we are thinking we have conquered. This is Maya. So, as mentioned earlier, of course, the so-called scientists and atheists, they always say that God doesn't exist and everything comes from nature. But the fact remains that even nature is part of Krishna's inferior energy. So, ironically, all these so-called intellectuals, they tend to deny the existence of God, and even for that, they need God's help. They need to point at God's inferior energy. However, being deluded by Maya, those who deny the existence of God, they, of course, if they deny the existence of God, there's no question about them inquiring about God. So for sure, they'll always remain in this delusion and think that they can exploit material nature, but they will, as conditioned souls, we are all getting kicked by material nature in the form of the threefold miseries, and throughout our life, we are suffering due to these threefold miseries, and even after dying, we take another form of life, and we are trapped in the vicious cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease. Has anyone solved these problems? We can never find answers or solutions to the problems of birth, death, old age, and disease in any of the so-called academic institutions, because those institutions in any university, we are only being taught about how we can become better than animals in the same business of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. So without spiritual education, we are no better than animals. Then what advancement have we really made in knowledge and civilization? We are under the stringent rules of material nature, but still we are thinking we have conquered. This is called Maya. So without spiritual education, we are always going to remain in this delusion throughout our life. And even after quitting this body, we are going to repeat the same thing again. There may be some difficulty in surrendering to the father of this body, for he has limited knowledge and power. But Kṛṣṇa is not like an ordinary father. Kṛṣṇa is unlimited and has full knowledge, full power, full wealth, full beauty, full fame, and full renunciation. Shouldn't we consider ourselves lucky to go to such a father and enjoy his property? Yet no one seems to care about this. And now everyone is making propaganda that there is no God. Why do people not seek him out? The answer is given in chapter 7, verse 15 of the Bhagavad Gita. Namam duskritno muda pravadyanti naradama maya partanyana asurambhava ashrita. Those miscreants who are grossly foolish, who are lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and who partake of the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me. So even regarding this verse, we have even seen some quite a lot of examples of such duskritis, because these people are known as duskritis, who do not surrender to Kṛṣṇa. So Kṛṣṇa himself acknowledges that such people do exist. In this way, the fools are categorized. A duskriti is always acting against the scriptural injunctions. The business of current civilization is to break scriptural rules. That's all. By definition, a pious man is one who doesn't. There must be some standard to distinguish between duskriti, an evildoer, and sukriti, a virtuous man. Every civilized country has some scripture. It may be Christian, Hindu, Muslim, or Buddhist. That doesn't matter. The point is that the book of authority, the scripture, is there. One who does not follow its injunctions is considered an outlaw. Now, regarding scriptures, I think I have mentioned this earlier. In Sanskrit, the word scripture, the word for scripture in Sanskrit is Shastra, and even in languages like Malayalam, the word for science is Shastram. So since ancient times, even in the previous yugas, Shastras were regarded as science. So even in now we are living in this Kali Yuga, the most degraded age, but in the previous yugas, Shastras were regarded as science. But today we claim to live in a modern civilization in where Shastras have been degraded to merely being religious scriptures. And that is the root cause for all our problems. Another category mentioned in this verse is Muda, full number one. The Nanadama is one who is low in the human scale, and Maya Partanyana refers to one whose knowledge is carried away by Maya or illusion. Asuram Bhavamashrita refers to those who are out and out atheists. Although there are no disadvantages to surrendering to the Father, people who are thus characterized never do it. As a result, they are constantly punished by the agents of the Father. They have to be slapped, caned, and kicked severely, and they have to suffer. Just as a father has to chastise his unruly boy, so material nature has to employ certain punishments. At the same time, nature is nourishing us by supplying food and other necessities. But both processes are going on because we are sons of the wealthiest father of all, and Krishna is kind even though we do not surrender to him. Yet, despite being furnished so well by the father, the Duskriti still performs unsanctioned actions. One is foolish if he persists in being punished, and one is low on the human scale if he does not use this human form of life to understand Krishna. If a man does not use his life to reawaken the relationship he has with his real father, he is to be considered fallen in the human scale. So the only difference between us and animals is that we have got this human form of life to understand Krishna. Apart from that, there's not much difference between us and animals because we are also engaged in the business of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. So unless we engage in spiritual inquiry and devotional service seriously, there will be no difference between us and animals. So it's all right for animals to behave like Mudas, Naradamas, and Asuras. But if those who have been blessed with the human form of life turn out to be Duskritis, then that is extremely unfortunate. And of course, nowadays, all these so-called intellectuals, they are the ones who claim to be atheists. They tend to do it sheerly due to their ignorance, despite the fact that they themselves claim to be intellectuals. But they don't even know why they have got this human form of life. Animals simply eat, sleep, defend themselves, have sexual intercourse, and die. They do not avail themselves of higher consciousness because that is not possible in the lower forms of life. If a human being follows the activities of the animals and does not avail himself of his ability to elevate his consciousness, he falls down the human scale and prepares for an animal body in his next life. By the grace of Krishna, we are given a highly developed body and intelligence, but if we don't utilize them, why should he give them to us again? We must understand that this human body has developed after millions and millions of years of evolution, and that in itself, it is a chance to get out of the cycle of birth and death, in which over 8 million species of life evolve. This chance is given by the grace of Krishna, and if we do not take it, are we not the lowest among men? One may be a degree holder, MA, PhD, etc., from some university, but the illusory energy takes away this mundane knowledge. He who is really intelligent will apply his intelligence to understand who he is, who God is, what material nature is, why he is suffering in material nature, and what is the remedy to this suffering. So for those who have got the human form of life, and if they are not willing to use it to understand Krishna, they are no better than animals. And for those who knowingly choose to behave in such way, if they knowingly choose to live like animals, Krishna will also be merciful enough to give them the animal form of life in their next life. So this human form has been gained after going through the 84 lakh species of life. We have got this human form of life after going through the 84 lakh material bodies, and therefore we should not waste this opportunity. However, the influence of Maya is so strong that Duskritis like the Maya Parthanyanas, those so-called scholars who have 2 or 3 PhDs, they tend to ridicule Kṛṣṇa due to the influence of Maya. They claim to be atheist and deny the existence of Kṛṣṇa, regardless of their so-called academic qualification. For people who have such scholarly ability, and if they knowingly choose to ridicule Kṛṣṇa and deny the existence of Kṛṣṇa, for such people, they are really wasting their human form of life, and for sure, they won't be getting what they don't deserve in their next life. We may apply our intelligence to manufacture an automobile, radio, or television for sense gratification, but we have to understand that this is not knowledge. Rather, this is plundered intelligence. Intelligence was given to man to understand the problems of life, but it is being misused. People are thinking they have acquired knowledge because they know how to manufacture and drive cars, but before the car was here, people were still going from one place to another. It's just that the facility has been increased, but along with this facility have come additional problems: air pollution and overcrowded highways. This is Maya. We are creating facilities, but these facilities in their turn are creating so many problems. In many of our academic institutions, they offer so many academic programs like mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, or even software engineering. But none of these academic programs train students on how to solve the problems of life. We are being trained to create the problems of life and to think that those are the real problems of life. Like by manufacturing automobiles, we have actually created the problem of pollution, and then we tend to think that we are going to create some innovative solutions, and in the process we are going to end up creating other problems. Like even this plastic bag was nowadays people are saying that we have to use eco-friendly bags, but in India, like especially in the villages, people have been using the eco-friendly cloth bags since ancient times, but that was regarded as backwardness in those days. But now they are saying that it's eco-friendly now. Even nowadays, in some country, they have come up with this so-called innovation where they have created plates using eco-friendly plates using leaves. But apparently they don't know about how we have been using banana leaves to eat. So in the name of modernization, we have actually ended up creating problems, and then we tend to fool ourselves thinking that we can come up with innovations to solve those problems, but in that process we end up creating more problems. Instead of wasting our energy to supply ourselves with so many facilities and modern amenities, we should apply intelligence to understand who and what we are. We do not like to suffer, but we should understand why suffering is being forced on us. By so-called knowledge, we have simply succeeded in manufacturing the atomic bomb. Thus, the killing process has been accelerated. We are so proud to think that this is an advancement of knowledge, but if we can manufacture something that can stop death, we have really advanced in knowledge. Death is already there in material nature, but we are so eager to promote it by killing everyone at one drop. This is called Maya Partanyana, knowledge carried away by illusion. So apart from minor problems like pollution, a lot of other major problems have been created through all these so-called technological developments, especially like weapons of mass destruction. The asuras, the demons and proclaimed atheists, actually challenged God. If it were not for our Supreme Father, we would not see the light of day. So what is the point of challenging him? In the Vedas, it is stated that there are two classes of men, devas and asuras, the demigods and demons. Who are the devas? The devotees of the Supreme Lord are called devas because they also become like God. whereas those who defy the authority of the Supreme are called asuras or demons. These two classes are always found in human society. So the so-called atheists who deny the existence of God, they are not actually in this human society, like in Kali Yuga, it's not really proper to hate these atheists. We just have to sympathize with them because they are so foolish to the extent that they tend to deny the existence of God. But even to prove that their point, they have to still depend on God by pointing to his inferior energy. They say that there is no God, but everything comes from nature. But even nature is part of Krishna's inferior energy. So such is their foolishness. So we can only sympathize with them. Just as there are 4 types of miscreants who never surrender to Krishna, there are 4 types of fortunate men who worship him, and they are categorized in the next verse. Chaturvida bhajante mam jana sukirtana Arjuna, alto jignasu artati jnani cha bharatar sabha. O best among the Bharatas, Arjuna, 4 kinds of pious men render devotional service unto me: the distressed, the desire of wealth, the inquisitive, and he who is searching for knowledge of the absolute. Gita 7.16. So this verse comes right after the previous verse, which talks about the 4 types of duskritis. In 7.15, it mentions about duskritis, and 7.16 is about the 4 types of sukirtis, the pious people. This material world is full of distress, and both the pious and impious are subject to it. The cold of winter treats everyone alike. It does not care for the pious or impious, the rich or poor. The difference between the pious and the impious, however, is that the pious man thinks of God when he is in his miserable condition. Often when a man is distressed, he will go to church and pray, "Oh my Lord, I am in difficulty, please help me." Although he is praying for some material necessity, such a man is still to be considered pious because he has come to God in his distress. Similarly, a poor man may go to church and pray, "My dear Lord, please give me some money." On the other hand, the inquisitive are usually intelligent. They are always researching to understand things. They may ask, "What is God?" and then conduct scientific research to find out. They are also considered pious because their research is directed to the proper object. The man in knowledge is called a jnani, one who has understood his constitutional position. Such a jnani may have an impersonal conception of God, but because he is taking shelter of the ultimate, the supreme absolute truth, he is also to be considered pious. These 4 types of men are called sukirtis, pious because they are all after God. So there's something like a grading here, beginning from the person who is in distress. Then there's the inquisitive person. And on top of everything, there's the jnani. So in chapter 7, Krishna himself states that he prefers the jnanis among all these pious categories. However, apart from the jnanis, even others are also equally dear to him because they are all willing to surrender to him. Tesyam jnani nityukta eka bhaktil visishyate priyo hi jnanino kyartam aham sachamama priya. Of these, the one who is in full knowledge and who is always engaged in pure devotional service is the best, for I am very dear to him and he is dear to me. Gita 7.17. So here in this verse, Krishna states that his preference is to the jnanis out of the 4 categories of sukirtis. However, even in other verses, he says that even the other categories of sukirtis are also dear to him, but out of the 4, he prefers the jnanis. Out of the 4 classes of men who approach God, he who is philosophically trying to understand the nature of God, who is trying to become Krishna conscious, Vishishyate, is best qualified. Indeed, Krishna says that such a person is very dear to him because he has no other business than understanding God. The others are inferior. No one has to pray to God to ask for anything. And he who does so is foolish because he does not know that the all-knowing God is within his heart and is well aware when he is in distress or in need of money. The wise man realizes this and does not pray for relief from material miseries. Rather, he prays to glorify God and inform others how great he is. He does not pray for his personal interest for bread, dress, or shelter. The pure devotee, when he is distressed, says, Dear Lord, this is your kindness. You have put me into distress just to rectify me. I should be put in much greater distress, but out of your mercy, you have minimized this. This is the vision of a pure devotee who is not disturbed. So this is the difference between a jnani and a person who is in distress. Even those who are in distress, they are willing to surrender to Kṛṣṇa, but that is merely for some material benefit. The problem with such people is that they don't realize that their material miseries will always continue as long as they are not willing to liberate themselves from this material bondage. Today, if we have some financial problems, we can pray to Kṛṣṇa that he helps us to solve it. But tomorrow there might be some other problem again, because in chapter 2, 2.14 also, Kṛṣṇa says, Matra Sparta Sukansaya, Sidosna Sugadukara, Agama Paino Anityas, Tam Triti Sastava Bharata. Happiness and distress, the seasons like summer and winter, they will always come and go. These dualities will always be there as long as we are trapped in this material world. So those who are distressed, they merely approach Kṛṣṇa to get happiness. Happiness is just one side of the coin, and the other side is distress. As long as we are trapped in this material world, we can never put an end to these problems. We may experience happiness, but distress will somehow come in some other ways after a temporary period of happiness. So only the intelligent jnanis will be willing to inquire into the root cause of the problem. Only the jnanis will be inquiring about, why am I here in the first place? I'm being born into this world, then I study hard, then I work, I accumulate a lot of material wealth, and someday everything is taken away from me just like that. Why should I go through this process? For what? A true jnani is someone who inquires into these four basic problems of life, Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi. Only when we inquire into these problems, we can liberate ourselves from the material bondage. So a jnani will always think about how to completely liberate himself from this material bondage, so that he won't have to think about, okay, what to do if I face some financial problems and all that. Once we are liberated from this material world, then we don't have to worry about all those problems like need of money, bread, dress, or shelter. So all these material needs are related to our material form of life. If we get rid of this material engagement, this material body, then we don't have to worry about all these problems. So when we attain the supreme abode, the spiritual world, then we can experience full bliss. Bliss is different from happiness, because if there is happiness, there will always be distress. That is in the material world. But in the spiritual world, there are no dualities, so we can experience full bliss. So that is what the jnanis always look for. That is the difference between a jnani and the person who is distressed and goes to pray for money from Kṛṣṇa. He who is in Kṛṣṇa consciousness does not care for material distress, insult, or honor, because he is aloof from all these. He knows well that distress, honor, and insult pertain to the body only, and that he is not the body. Socrates, for instance, who believed in the immortality of the soul, was condemned to death, and upon being asked how he would like to be buried, replied, "First of all, you may have to catch me." So one who knows he is not the body is not disturbed, for he knows the soul cannot be caught, tortured, killed, or buried. He who is conversant with the signs of Kṛṣṇa knows perfectly well that he is not the body, that he is part and parcel of Kṛṣṇa, that his real relationship is with Kṛṣṇa, and that somehow or other, although he has been put in the material body, he must remain aloof from the three qualities of material nature. He is not concerned with the modes of goodness, passion, or ignorance, but with Kṛṣṇa. One who understands this is a jnani. a wise man, and he is very much dear to Krishna. A distressed man, when he's put into opulence, may forget God, but a jnani who knows the real position of God will never forget him. So we have examples like we spoke about Bharat Maharaj, even Parikshit Maharaj. All these ancient kings, they were always they always had this spiritual education, and therefore even when they were bathing in all these material opulences, they never forgot about Krishna. So even Parikshit Maharaj, he had the fortune of seeing Krishna when he was in his mother's womb, and even towards the end of his life, he was completely absorbed in Krishna consciousness. So those are the signs of jnanis. Although they may be completely, it may appear like they are being absorbed in the material affairs of this world, their consciousness is fully absorbed in Krishna. So those are the signs of a jnani, unlike people who are distressed and merely pray to Krishna for money. There is a class of jnanis called impersonalists who say that because worshipping the impersonal is too difficult, a form of God has to be imagined. These are not real jnanis, they are fools. No one can imagine the form of God, for God is so great. One may imagine some form, but that is a concoction. It is not the real form. There are those who imagine the form of God, and there are those who deny the form of God. Neither is a jnani. Those who imagine the form are called iconoclasts. During the Hindu-Muslim riots in India, some Hindus would go to the Muslim mosque and break statues and images of God, and the Muslims would reciprocate in like manner. In this way, they were both thinking, we have killed the Hindu God, we have killed the Muslim God. Similarly, when Gandhi was leading his resistance movement, many Indians would go to the street and destroy the mailboxes. And in this way, think they were destroying the government postal service. People of such mentality are not jnanis. The religious wars between the Hindus, Muslims, Christians, and non-Christians were all conducted on the basis of ignorance. One who is in knowledge knows that God is one. He cannot be Muslim, Hindu, or Christian. So this does not really apply to God. It also applies to us as spirit souls. This entire business of spirituality is all about realizing that we are not this material body, we are spirit souls, that we are parts and parcels of Krishna. So if we really have that realization, we can actually transcend these religious identities. Sanatan Dharma is not equal to the Hindu religion, which merely has this label attached to it, the label of Hinduism. The eternal Dharma is Sanatan Dharma, meaning that our eternal Dharma is to identify ourselves as parts and parcels of Krishna and to always remain in his service. That is our Dharma. So Dharma is above religion. So if we are able to understand this simple fact, then we won't be obsessed with minor things like religion and all that. And even these so-called religious conflicts happen due to sheer ignorance. It is our imagination that God is such and such and such and such. That is all imagination. The real wise man knows that God is transcendental. One who knows that God is transcendental to the material modes truly knows God. God is always beside us, present in our hearts. When we leave the body, God also goes with us. And when we take on another body, he goes with us there just to see what we are doing. When shall we turn our face toward him? He is always waiting. As soon as we turn our face toward God, he says, my dear son, come on. Sachama Priya, you are eternally dear to me. Now you are turning your face to me, and I'm very glad. So this is clearly referring to the Paramatma feature of God. Krishna himself says this in verses like 15.15. He says, Sarvasya Chaham Shriti Sannivista. He resides in every living entity's heart. Even in Gita 18.61, he says, Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam Hrideshe Junatistati. Krishna resides in everyone's heart as the Paramatma. So Paramatma always accompanies the living entities in all our material bodies. He accompanies us like a witness to witness whether we are engaged in spiritual inquiry and whether are we engaged in devotional service or not. If not, if we are too engaged in sense gratification, then Kṛṣṇa will award us some other form of material body in our next life. If we are engaged in devotional service, then we can regain our original spiritual body and associate with Kṛṣṇa in the spiritual world. The wise man, the jnani, actually understands the signs of God. One who only understands that God is good is in a preliminary stage, but one who actually understands how great and good God is further progressed. That knowledge is to be had in Srimad Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita. One who is actually interested in God should study the signs of God, the Bhagavad Gita. Idam tu te guyatamam pravakshami anashunyave jnana vijnana sahitam yajñātva mokṣasya suvat. My dear Arjuna, because you are never envious of me, I shall impart to you this most confidential knowledge and realization, knowing which you shall be relieved of the miseries of material existence. Gita 9.1. So this is from chapter 9, the most confidential knowledge. The knowledge of God imparted in the Bhagavad Gita is very subtle and confidential. It is full of jnana, metaphysical wisdom, and vijnana, scientific knowledge. And it is full of mystery also. How can one understand this knowledge? It must be imparted by God himself or a bona fide representative for God. Therefore, Sri Kṛṣṇa says that whenever there is a discrepancy on understanding the signs of God, he incarnates himself. So this discrepancy in understanding the signs of God results in chaos. And in chapter 4, Kṛṣṇa says that whenever religious principles are being violated, he incarnates himself. In 4.7, Kṛṣṇa says, Yada yada dharmasya glanirvavati bharata abhyutanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijamyam. Then in 4.8, he says, Paritranaya sadhana vinashaya saddushritam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. To establish the principles of religion, I incarnate myself millennium after millennium. So it is also stated in Bhagavatam that dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam. Dharma itself comes from God. So only God can convey the knowledge about the signs of God. And it comes to us through the disciplic succession. Nor does knowledge come from sentiment. Devotion is not sentiment, it is a science. Srila Rupa Goswami says, a show of spirituality without reference to the Vedic knowledge is simply a disturbance to society. One must taste the nectar of devotion by reason, argument, and knowledge, and then he must pass it on to others. One should not think that Kṛṣṇa consciousness is mere sentimentality. The dancing and singing are all scientific. There is science, and there is also loving reciprocation. Kṛṣṇa is very dear to the wise man, and the wise man is very dear to Kṛṣṇa. Kṛṣṇa will return our love 1,000-fold. What capacity do we finite creatures have to love Kṛṣṇa? But Kṛṣṇa has immense capacity, unlimited capacity for love. So Srila Rupa Goswami, the one who composed Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, we have the English version of it was done as a summary study by Srila Prabhupada, titled Nectar of Devotion. For those who have experienced, for those who have practiced and experienced Kṛṣṇa consciousness, we have surely felt that for every step we take towards Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa reciprocates by taking 10 steps towards us. We can even feel how easy the process is because he himself has, helps us. Because we come into the association of devotees, we find the spiritual master. We also get the association of so many Siksha Gurus. So the more we are seriously engaged in the practice of Kṛṣṇa consciousness, Kṛṣṇa himself reciprocates by making it much easier for us. So we just have to keep going and get it right. So we have actually completed the chapter 4. Just one more chapter to finish this book. That's all for today. Any questions or comments?
Okay, Prabhu. Nice class.
Okay, thank you, Mataji. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for attending.
You read the paragraphs and they explain nicely. It's
Mhm.
easy to understand.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Uh,
Thank you.
yeah, special thanks for attending.
Thank you so
Okay.
much for conducting, Prabhu.
Yep. Okay. Hope we can meet in the next session.
Yeah,
Thank
sure,
you.
definitely.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Mataji.
Yeah,
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Okay.